Good evening. Welcome to tonight's devotional. We're continuing on with our series looking at the book of Philippians. Tonight we're in Philippians chapter 1, looking at verses 12 through 26. Verses 12 through 26. I hope that you enjoyed your Memorial Day, grilled some brats, and enjoyed whatever it is that you did to relax and enjoy the freedoms that have been secured and won for you by the brave men and women of our armed forces. We are going to be reading verses 12 through 26, as I said, but we're going to key in on one key verse in verse 21. So we'll point that out when we get there. It says, "Now I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that what has happened to me has actually served to advance the gospel. As a result, it's become clear throughout the whole palace garden to everyone else that I am in chains for Christ. And because of my chains, most of the brothers and sisters have become confident in the Lord and dare all the more to proclaim the gospel without fear. It is true that some preach Christ out of envy and rivalry, but others out of goodwill. The latter do so out of love, knowing that I am put here for the defense of the gospel. The former preach Christ out of selfish ambition, not sincerely, supposing that they can stir up trouble for me while I am in chains. But what does it matter? The important thing is that in every way, whether from false motives or true, Christ is preached, and because of this, I rejoice. Yes, and I will continue to rejoice, for I know that through your prayers and God's provision of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, what has happened to me will turn out for my deliverance. I eagerly expect and hope that I will in no way be ashamed, but will have sufficient courage, so that now, as always, Christ will be exalted in my body, whether by life or by death. For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. If I am to go on living in the body, this will mean fruitful labor for me. Yet what shall I choose? I don't know. I am torn between the two. I desire to depart and be with Christ, which is better by far, but it is more necessary for you that I remain in the body. Convinced of this, I know that I will remain, and I will continue with all of you for your progress and joy in the faith, so that through my being with you again, your boasting in Christ Jesus will abound on account of me." That's a man that you can't defeat. Because if he's alive, he's going to be preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. And if he dies, he's going to get to join Christ. So he's not going to flag in his determination to continue to preach. In fact, that's his one hope, his one aim, his one goal is here. He says, "Yes, and I will continue to rejoice, for I know that through your prayers and God's provision of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, what has happened to me will turn out for my deliverance. I eagerly expect and hope. I eagerly expect and hope that I will in no way be ashamed." And he's not speaking of the Philippians, nor of Christ, or of Christ's Spirit. He's speaking of himself. "I eagerly expect and hope that I will not be ashamed of myself, but will have sufficient courage, so that now, as always, Christ will be exalted in my body, whether by life or by death." This is a man thrown in prison for the very fact that he's preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. Martyrdom is not a far-off concept. It is near to him. It could happen at any day, in any hour. And his one hope is not that he is released. His one hope is that he wouldn't be ashamed of himself, that he would not betray his own convictions and would not betray his own love for Christ by cowardice. That's a man you can't defeat. You can't beat him. Satan threw shipwrecks at him. He threw serpent bites at him. He threw privation at him. He threw success and fame at him. He threw everything at him. And to live was Christ. To die was gain. If death is success and a gateway to the most desired for reality, then you're going to live your life in such a way as to aim at that next life. And that's an unbeatable person. Because if something bad happens, they see it as an opportunity to profess the truth of Christ. If something good happens, they see it as an opportunity to thank God for his mercy in Christ. And if he is tortured, it's seen as an opportunity to test his mettle and to make sure that he does not betray himself with cowardice, but rather with courage holds to his convictions in Christ. Everything's Christ. It's in Christ. Why do you think he can have such joy in his life? It's certainly not because of the ease of his life. He's not going after the retirement golden egg. He doesn't have a 401k stocked to the brim so that he knows that he can travel about and enjoy fine dining the rest of his days. None of those things is what he cares about. And so his life is filled with joy because every day, whether good or ill, gives him an opportunity to either prove Christ or prove himself. This is a challenging passage to me. And it's summed up in that key verse I was telling you about. Verse 21, he says, "For to me, to live is Christ, and to die is gain." So for Paul, to live was the challenge of living as Christ lived. It involved suffering. It involved sacrifice and hardship, but also success and being able to spread the kingdom message. But to live as Christ, it's suffering and sacrifice on mission. And to die is gain. To die is better. And because it was better for him to die, he was convinced that he would live, because it would be better for the Philippians if he did. Live a life worthy of the calling. This is the same man who penned those words while in prison for his faith. Are you living a life worthy of the calling? Is your courage unable to be flagged, unable to be limited or decreased? Or when bad things happen, do you doubt God? When bad things happen, do you begin to wonder whether or not this faith makes sense? Do you see every opportunity as an opportunity for the gospel? Because if you do, you will find joy every day. Because Paul, in prison, in chains, facing possible torture and martyrdom, experienced great joy. That is, in fact, what I told you last night, this book resounds with, is joy. And it's from a man who's imprisoned for his faith. Some would pen the words that this life is but a prison bar. And in some ways, maybe it is. We have significant limitations. But I think instead, this life is an opportunity to prove to the world what really matters. And on this Memorial Day, we honor those who decided to lay down their lives for freedom and patriotism. What are you laying your life down for? Paul laid his down for the advance of the gospel, and so should we all. May our great God and King bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you, and may you find a life worth giving and therefore living. Thank you, and good night.